Hi Janesville, welcome to Park Place Views, brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATVMedia Services. I'm Jamie Balsiger, the Management Information Intern in the City Manager's Office. This monthly program aims to keep Janesville residents informed by highlighting the people, places, events, and partners in the City of Janesville. On last month's episode, we talked with Janesville Innovation Center Operations Manager Mike Matthews about the Innovation Center's current happenings, mission, and services. If you are interested in viewing past episodes of Park Place Views, they are available to watch on the city's website or JATV's YouTube channel. On this month's episode, we'll be speaking with City Manager Mark Freitag to gain an inside perspective as he wraps up his 4th year as City Manager of Janesville. Mark has served as Janesville's City Manager since December of 2013. Prior to this position, he had a 25-year career in the United States Army and served as a colonel at the end of his career. Mark was the garrison commander of Fort Hood, Texas from 2010 to 2012 and finished his Army career as deputy commander of the U.S. Army in Alaska. Thanks for being here today, Mark.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you've been in Janesville now for 4 years, which, if I understand correctly, that is the longest you've ever lived somewhere in your life. That's hard to believe, but I suppose that's life when you're raised in a military family and have a military career. Do you feel like Janesville is home?
Yeah, absolutely. So on November 11th, my family and I completed 4 years living here in Janesville. And for me and for my daughter and for our granddaughter, you know, that's the longest any of us have lived anywhere. And so for me, I was a military child growing up in a military family. We moved, I think it was 11 times during that, birth to 18, and then went to West Point for just shy of 4 years, and that was previously the longest I've ever lived anywhere. And then my own military career, 25 years with Janesville being my 14th move. You know, there were a lot of transitions there, and so this is, this is the longest I've ever lived anywhere. We're, proud to call it home. I think that, for us, it's been a very, very welcoming community as we've transitioned in. We really don't have any roots in Wisconsin proper or Janesville, but we certainly have roots in the upper Midwest. My family, both on my mom and my dad's side, was originally from the South Dakota area. And so, we're proud to say that we're Janesvillians and we're Wisconsinites.
So you've been a lot of places, but what do you like most about this community?
Yeah, I would tell you that, what we enjoy most is, first and foremost, the Midwest values. Doing the right thing for the right reasons. That, kind of is what, really is something that comes to, both my wife's and my, heart, and that special feeling that we appreciate that Midwest values. And, frankly, I think we like the work ethic. We're both, people who, appreciate working hard to, achieve success. And so that's certainly evident in Janesville, not only from its agricultural background and that agricultural community, but even in the industrial and manufacturing makeup that's kind of at the core of Janesville's soul. And so I think that's important. We like, kind of in that same vein, we like to be able to walk down the street and someone's going to say hello. Or if you're driving, on a country road or even a less traveled road here in Janesville, you might get the occasional, wave. And that's something that as Janesville grows, that certainly as a resident, but more importantly as the city manager, I hope that Janesville doesn't lose that, connectivity and friendly, warm, and welcoming kind of environment that is in Janesville. I'd tell you that another thing that we really like about Janesville is the location. If you can't find something in Janesville, you can find it and get to it relatively quickly, in Madison, in Rockford, in Milwaukee or the suburbs, or, with a little bit greater drive down into the Chicago Metroplex. So, location is perfect. And then the other thing that we really enjoy about the community is the weather. You mentioned I served down in Texas, and we had extreme heat, for a large part of the year down in Texas, and then we moved up to Alaska, and we had extreme cold, for a large part of the year. And frankly, we think that Wisconsin kind of provides that right balance of temperature for seasons. We enjoy the snow, but we also enjoy a nice, sunny summer, and you get both of those things in Wisconsin, so it's perfect.
Yeah, it is in the middle.
Yeah.
Is there anything that surprised you about living in Wisconsin?
Yeah, so, not being from Wisconsin, I just assumed that when I showed up in Janesville, that I would be immersed into a sea of Green Bay Packers jerseys and Packers fans. And strangely, kind of to my surprise, Janesville, has a lot of very loyal and dedicated Chicago Bears fans. And so I think, Janesville may be right on that bubble between, where you have folks that still remain loyal to the Chicago Bears, and then you've got those folks that seem to, favor the Green Bay Packers. But, who knew? I didn't know that when I came here, and so it's been an interesting kind of reality check. In fact, in our office, more than half of the office are Chicago Bears fans, strangely enough.
Yeah. I'm a Green Bay Packer, so
Okay.
I'll be on the other side.
Okay.
Since 2017 is coming to an end, I wanted to talk about the city's strategic plan. The city first developed a strategic plan under your administration in 2014. What benefit does having a strategic plan for the city?
Yeah, so just as some background, when I arrived here, that was one of the first things the council asked me to work on was, we need to develop a strategic plan. And, what does the strategic plan do? Well, it really carries the city forward to achieve a vision. And so you've got to have a vision before you can have a strategic plan, but then the strategic plan is going to get you to that vision. And so, the first thing that the staff and the community worked on was our community vision statement. Where do we see ourselves in 25 years? And what came out of all that interaction with the public was Wisconsin's Park Place discover the community of choice to realize life's opportunities. Three main pieces to that. One, people still wrap their arms around and identify with Wisconsin's Park Place. 64 parks, 2,600 acres dedicated to parkland or green space, 30 miles of trails connecting them all, et cetera, et cetera. So it was important for the community to maintain that identity of Wisconsin's Park Place. But then, really this community of choice. Why do people choose to live in Janesville? Are they born here and they go work for GM and they have no other options? Or are we looking for something bigger and better? And that really gets to that why, to realize life's opportunities. So, in Janesville, people were looking for, they can do anything they want to achieve in life. You can do it right here in Janesville. You don't have to go to Madison, you don't have to go to Chicago, you don't have to go to Rockford, et cetera. You can do it in Janesville. So if you want to raise a family, Janesville is a perfect place to do that. If you want to open and run a small business, Janesville is a perfect place to do that. If you want to be, in the agricultural field, lots of opportunities, here in Rock County that you can base out of Janesville to do. If you want to work for a large, manufacturing company or a distributor, guess again, you can do that here in Janesville. If you want to retire and just enjoy the good life, what a better place to do that than Wisconsin's Park Place. So, that vision really was, where do people see this community in 25 years? So we built the strategic plan based upon 9 goals to get us there. And that's really what that strategic plan does, is it guides our city's 5-year effort, aligned with those goals and then the subordinate objectives. But I think what's really important that the community and the public need to understand is that if you have a strategic plan, then you're making decisions on the city's benefit or for the city's welfare based upon that plan, based upon getting to that vision, instead of someone's individual whim. Oh, this is important today for me. We don't want to make those kinds of decisions, because essentially it takes us off of that long-range plan, and it sometimes can derail you. The other thing that you can get in trouble, and some communities do, is that resources or a lack of resources drives what you do. And so if you have a strategic plan, you can plan accordingly, you can chart your course, and make sure that you're really putting your money where your mouth is, i.e. putting those resources towards that plan. And essentially, as council members come and go, as city managers come and go, as staff come and go, everybody understands this is the guiding document that's going to get you to that vision statement. So that's why the strategic plan is important.
On the strategic plan, what are some of the projects that were completed in 2017?
Yeah. Well, in 2017, I think the community would recognize the most notable ones were those that are associated with ARISE, which is our downtown revitalization plan and program. And so, taking down the parking deck and then building the west side of our town square, those were really two major achievements for our strategic plan. But I'd like to highlight the other one that I think is really kind of up there at the top of significant achievements for the city, and that was our road program. Back in 2014, when we started having this community conversation about what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go, and how we were going to get to that vision, one of the things that the public came out and said, in spades, large numbers, we want our roads fixed. And so, the council heard that, certainly the staff and I heard that, and we said, okay, well, let's figure out how we can start working on our roads. Now, remember, in 2014, we essentially reconstructed or resurfaced 6 miles of road in the city. Now, remember, we have 333 miles or so of improved roads in the city, and so you're not going to do that every year. You're not going to do that every couple years. But based upon the life cycle of a road's going to last somewhere between 20 to 30 years, call it an average of 25. And so, at 25 years of life, we need to do 12 miles of road per year. And so we set out on a task to do that. It's an expensive endeavor, and frankly, with the cost of asphalt, concrete, etc., it gets more expensive each and every year. But in 2014, we did that 6 miles. 15, we moved to 6.5, and then we made the big jump in 2016 with 12 miles of road per year, and then really in 2017, we actually achieved 14 miles of road this past year over the construction cycle, but that was due to the assistance of some state funding where we reconstructed Austin Road, which was a town standard road, country road. We turned it into an urban standard road, and then if you remember, East Milwaukee was repaired from Sumac, I think, out to Wright Road, and again, that one was with some state-provided funding. But 14 miles of road in a year is a lot of road to get done. And so in 2018, we're projected to bump back to 12 miles. But that's our plan. That's one of the things that we've coordinated, whether it's water, wastewater, stormwater, et cetera, in our strategic plan to make sure that we're meeting that community need.
That was a lot done this past year.
Yep.
So how about plans for 2018? What are some major projects that will take place next year?
Well, again, we've got a lot of projects that are associated with ARISE, our downtown revitalization, and I know we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then, certainly we're going to remove the Monterey Dam next summer. So that's going to be a major project for the city. But we also have the road program, so that 12 miles. But the thing that I'm excited about, frankly, is in 2018, we're going to bring improvements to our wayfinding signage across the community. So let me explain. So wayfinding signage, those are those signs that you see on the side of the road that will say downtown in this direction, and Ice Arena, take a right, and Tallman House, go straight ahead, whatever. And as I got into the community and arrived in 2013 and 14, I decided, just out of the fun of it, I was going to see if I could get off the interstate and follow those signs to my destination. And I realized very quickly that there were signs coming off the interstate, but there weren't necessarily signs at critical junction points where you had to make a decision, turn left or right, to get to that final destination. So there wasn't any rhyme nor reason to where they were placed or what they were getting you to. So we've had this on the strategic plan since our very beginning. 2014 was, in 2018, we're going to redo our wayfinding signage across the community. And so we've partnered up with the Janesville Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, and so they're going to provide some funding. We're going to put some funding together. We've already figured out where all of those signs actually need to go to get you to those important spots. And then, we're going to end up putting the signs out. So, essentially making or building the signs and then putting them in place. And so by the end of 2018, if you're coming off the interstate and you're trying to get to a Jets game at the Ice Arena, our signage should be able to get you there without having to necessarily follow GPS or whatnot, although that's another option today.
So that is a lot that will happen next year. And as you mentioned, there was a lot of activity downtown in 2017 What were the projects completed as part of the Arise program downtown this year?
Yeah, so this was really our first big year with actual projects happening in downtown Janesville. And so Arise is our revitalization plan. We worked on it in 2014 as a community. The council approved it in 2015. And then in 2016, our first major step towards seeing Arise move forward was we essentially changed the direction on Milwaukee Street from being a one-way street to a two-way street. So that was a significant event about, October of last year. So then in 2017, we've really had a couple significant activities. Number one, we took out the parking plaza that straddled the Rock River and was there for 50 plus years. We took that thing down, and that was a significant emotional event, not only for folks who are concerned about the amount of parking that's in the downtown, but there's a lot of folks that have never known anything different. That was part of Janesville as they knew it. And so, taking the parking deck out and exposing the river, and essentially that's one of the key tenets of Arise, is to connect the community with the river. It's a shame to have it covered up with a parking deck. So taking that out really was a significant forward step for the community. And so we did that in the January, February timeframe of last year. And so we were very, very excited about that project getting completed. And the good news is a majority of that funding was all based upon either grant dollars from federal or state programs or some other grants that we were able to receive some monies for. So pretty much a wash for the community as far as cost. And then the other thing that we've worked on really this past summer was kind of phase one of our town square. Now the town square is essentially a geographic area in the heart of the downtown. So Milwaukee Street Bridge on the north, River Street on the west, Court Street on the south, and Water Street, which is essentially the street that's behind the Old Town Mall there on Main Street. So that's your square. And so this year, over the summer, we worked on that kind of southwest corner, which was what we called phase one. And what that brought to the community was, number one, some stairs, seating area, but that bring you down to the river. So you can actually go down and stand, on the stairs and splash the water in the river. Not something you can do easily in the downtown because of the river walls that are in place. So that was significant. We put in a boat dock so that if you want to kayak or canoe up and down the river, there's a place to get on and off there. There's also a launching point there for a kayak or a canoe. We've got a raised pavilion that's in place. We've got a river lawn so that if you want to come down and picnic or play, catch, whatever, you can come down and do that on a nice green space. And so, a nice initial setup. And so we're excited about, kind of what that's been able to do for 2017. And so that's where we're at the end of 2017.
And what does the city have planned for 2018 Arise implementation?
Yep, so 2018 is a big year for the city. We've got about $6.5 million worth of projects that are going to be done next summer in the name of Arise in our downtown, specifically focused on our town square. And so, you say $6.5 million. Well, the good news is that that's not all local dollars. And so we've got about $2.9 million that will come from city borrowing. So those are local dollars. The beauty is that we borrow against the tax increment financing district in the downtown, so it really doesn't affect the general taxpayer in that regard. So that's a good news story for everybody. That's $2.9 million, and then the balance, $3.6 million, will come from federal dollars. And so when you think about the Milwaukee Street Bridge, that's a federal project. So the city only pays 20% of that cost. The federal government provides funding to cover the cost, the other 80%. And so we're very, very fortunate to have that be one of our projects next year that's got some federal dollars behind it. And so then in 2018, I think there are some whole bunch of things to talk about. First of all is we're going to finish up the west side on the town square, and so back behind the IBEW building on Dodge Street, where it essentially intersects with the river, we're going to have some parking established there. We're also going to put in a biofilter because that biofilter is going to take runoff water from the interactive water feature. And it's a private contract and a private improvement, but Forward Janesville has been working on for quite some time, bringing a interactive water feature with a sculpture and some jetted water and things like that that'll be set to music and lighting and things like that. Kind of a showpiece, if you will, of our town square, and that will be done next year. That's not locally funded; it's privately funded, so we're excited about that. And then we're putting in the Ice Age Trail. Right now, the Ice Age Trail is cut between Milwaukee Street Bridge and the town square, and so we'll end up putting a cantilevered walkway on top of the river that will carry into that Dodge Street area and then transition into the Great River Lawn. So the Ice Age Trail will be completed. We're going to convert Court Street on the south side from one-way to two-way traffic. Council approved that here previously. And then we're going to take the River Street. So River Street between Milwaukee Street and Court Street is going to be converted into a festival street. And when I say festival street, that is, the idea, the concept is that it's a normal street day to day, but it has the ability to have some bollards placed into it on the north side and on the south side, so you can shut it down. We'll make sure that there's lighting available and that there are opportunities to plug in electrical outlets, so that if we want to do a farmer's market or we want to do some kind of art show or a car show or something like that, you can do it and close down that street. And so then that really becomes the place for special events in the downtown, and oh, by the way, right next to the town square. So that's exciting. Across the street, on the north end of the transfer center, thanks to a very kind donation from SSM Health, we're going to bring a fitness court. Here in the community, if you want to go to the gym, often it costs money. Well, this provides an outdoor, free, open to the public fitness workout location called a fitness court. And so that's going to go in next summer. And then really kind of the big thing for 2018 at the end, we're going to reduce or start to deconstruct the Milwaukee Street Bridge. So it's going to be closed off from Main Street to River. Public safety, got to make sure no one's trying to cross while we're doing construction. But they're going to start to deconstruct that in 2018 fall and then bring it back up in 2019, very similarly to what we did with the Jackson Street Bridge in 14 and 15. And so you'll see that thing come down all the way to the pylons that connect into the bedrock on the river, and then it will be rebuilt. And so, like I said, just a lot of really exciting things happening. And so, that entire west side will be completed next year.
Yeah, there are a lot of things happening for next year. I keep hearing the Arise as a partnership. Who are the partners and how have they contributed to the success we're seeing in the Arise program? Yeah,
so there's a group called Arise Now, and that's really kind of the driving force behind all things Arise in the downtown. And the official partners of Arise Now are certainly the city, Forward Janesville Incorporated, Downtown Janesville Incorporated, and then the Janesville Performing Arts Center. And so those are the four key players in the Arise Now structure. But I would tell you that there are a whole lot of other partners when it comes to Arise. And so, I would offer up that, our downtown bid, which has been Business Improvement District, which has been newly formed, that's certainly going to be a partner. The Janesville Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, I've mentioned the wayfinding signage, that will be in the downtown, so they're certainly a partner. We've got Rock County Historical Society and all of the renovations and improvements that they're doing with the Lincoln Tallman House and their campus up at, on Mineral Point between Jackson and Franklin. They'll be working on, and so that's a connection to our downtown. But I think most importantly, when it comes to partnerships, is that Arise is not about Forward Janesville. It's not about the city. It's not about the Rock County Historical Society or the JACVB. Arise is about the community. So we're talking, individual residents. We're talking business owners in the downtown, and we're talking about, donors, whether those are individual donors or corporate donors that are providing funding to do some of the special things. And when I say special things, let's take for example the interactive water feature. If the city was going to put in some kind of interactive water feature, it'd probably be a couple pipes in the ground with some water shooting out of it, and it would be nice, but it would be pretty vanilla, if you will. Well, thanks to Forward Janesville and the fundraisers that have supported them, this interactive water feature is going to be more like Rocky Road. I mean, it's going to have some marshmallows and some nuts and some good flavors and things like that. I mean, it's really above the top. And so they're going to be able to do special things in our downtown because they're able to bring, some private dollars to improve kind of the base level things that city government can do. And so partnership is a key. It's one of our strategic goals, obviously. But, Arise would not happen if, the community didn't get involved. And I think if I remember the count, over the last 20 years, there have been 5 different plans for the revitalization of our downtown, Arise being one of those. And this is the first one to get some traction and move forward because it's not the city trying to drive it. We have a partnership between the city, the residents, the business owners, and all these other public service organizations and nonprofits that want to see transformative change in our downtown.
Yeah, all that you've mentioned is a lot of exciting stuff. And that's all happening downtown as part of Arise, but there are other projects brewing downtown that contribute to the positive momentum in downtown Janesville. What new developments are in projects or coming soon?
Yeah. You mentioned that phrase momentum, and I think that's important to kind of point out here is that, as I talk to people in the community, I hear this word momentum. We've got momentum going, and I would agree. I think it's fantastic to see this excitement and the energy and the forward progress, and it truly is momentum. And you ask yourself why or why now, and I really think that there's 3 pieces to it. Number one, the economy is good, and so people are not trying to figure out how do I save money. They're actually interested in spending money. So that's a good news story. Number 2, we've already talked about, that was the strategic plan, and that strategic plan really helps chart our progress forward and keep us on track. And then that third piece is what we just talked about, those partnerships. We've got community buy-in. We've got people that want to be part of the solution set and to see good things happening in their community. And so, as I look back, on some of the new developments over the past year, you think about Block 42 down on North Main Street. We've got a salad place, we've got a cupcake place, we've got a olive oil or an oil store, and we've got a coffee house. What a great addition to our downtown. And from a corporate perspective, we had Shine Medical bring its corporate headquarters from up in Madison and put it on, right on the main intersection in our downtown, Milwaukee and Main, up on the, 5th or 6th floor of 101 Prospect. And so, that kind of activity from the private world is really what gets you going, and spurs on more and more development. I will tell you that there's a couple things that the city can do to help stimulate or incentivize development in the downtown, and that comes through tax increment financing. And I'm really excited about that because one of the things that the city has been in desperate need of for many, many years is a downtown hotel. I don't know when the last time the downtown had a hotel, but it was well before I was here. And so, we've identified that was a need in our downtown. And fortunately, we've got a company coming in this next year that's going to break ground and build a new downtown hotel right on the corner of Milwaukee and River Street across from the Riverfront Center. And so they're going to bring 53 rooms. They're going to have a restaurant inside, some kind of steak or chop house. They'll have a fitness center for their guests. I'm just excited about this new construction going on in our downtown. So that's huge. And then, there are other opportunities for the community to jump on board. The city, really from an economic development standpoint, TIF financing is really the only tool that we have to incentivize people to do it. And so there are other projects out there that, are just are just ripe, for the picking. It's time to make it happen, and the city can help a developer, kind of get the project going and certainly cover any gap that might exist in their financing.
Can you talk about the Business Improvement District, or BID, that was recently established by the City Council?
Yeah, so when you say BID, that's an interesting story for Janesville. So BID is obviously the Business Improvement District, and as I understand the story, that Business Improvement District, was considered on 2 occasions previously and worked very, very hard by a bunch of well-intentioned folks, and it ended up failing. And I'm not sure why it ended up failing, but the reality is it did. And so what I think has been really significant here is that we've got a group of business owners in the downtown that are willing to essentially tax themselves, pay a little bit higher tax rate or assessment of themselves based upon the size of their property and where it is in the downtown, so that the downtown can bring events, so that the downtown can make the downtown look nicer. Again, nicer than that base level that the city can do on its own. How can they raise the bar? For example, banners, flower pots, nice, pretty flowers in some of the beds around town, more routine and regular street sweeping, snow removal in the wintertime, et cetera, et cetera. And so, we are really excited about seeing this kind of take off in 2018. But what's important is that this was grassroots fed. We put it on our strategic plan and said, we want to see this happen and we want to help. But it's not something that the city can drive. The city can help, we can encourage, we can support, but we're the ones that, we're not the ones that can make it happen. The downtown business owners made it happen this time, and so they'll start up officially here in January. And so we're excited to see this happen and kind of see how it evolves in time. But it's, a business improvement district, communities across Wisconsin, and for that matter, the United States have them. And so, I can't think of a better time for a business improvement district to start and prosper than what we currently have here in Janesville now.
Next, let's move to GM. As of the filming of this program, there's a company under contract to buy the GM property. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know about this company and share with us anything you know about their timeline and plans for the project?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there is a company called Commercial Development Company Incorporated that is currently under contract to purchase the GM Janesville Assembly Plant. And just as, some background for the community, that parcel, if you will, that property, it's comprised of 7 smaller parcels, but when you add up all 7 parcels, it's 252 acres. I mean, it's a huge piece of our south side of Janesville. In fact, the south side of Janesville really encompasses the Janesville Assembly Plant. And so, that facility, I mean, it's supersized on everything. It's got, rail service both on the north parcel and the south parcel. It's got, oversized water, wastewater, gas, electric. It's got oversized stormwater lines. It's got its own pretreatment facility. It's got its own power substation. And so, I mean, it's just, it's ripe again for some company to come in and do something with this. And so the exciting thing here is that Commercial Development Company Incorporated, they've essentially, they're under contract to purchase the GM plant. We should hear pretty soon, I would say sometime in the month of December, that the deal's actually been closed, and I would expect them to come along with GM to do an official announcement, some kind of press conference, and share the good news with the community. And so where this goes it's exciting to just think about the opportunities that are there. But from a city perspective, what we're excited about is that this is, again, we talk about transformative change in our downtown with the RISE. Well, the redevelopment of a 252-acre parcel or parcels in our south side of the city of Janesville. I mean, that's going to be transformative. That's going to bring some significant change to our community, and I would say good change. The way that Commercial Development Company has kind of laid it out is that if they come to closure and they actually close on the deal here in December, they'll probably spend their first 6 months conducting asbestos remediation on the plant itself. Obviously an old plant. Back in those days, they built with asbestos, so they got to get the asbestos out before they do anything with that plant. And then the question is what happens to the structure? The structure can be left in place, or portions of it could be left in place if there's a use for it. But if not, it's time to salvage and demo, that structure itself. Now remember, that's 4 million square feet under roof. I mean, that's a lot of space. And so a major effort. But they said 6 months to do the asbestos removal, 6 months or so to do the salvage and the demolition. And then, really you've got, two major properties. You've got the former JATCO site, which has been deemed by the DNR environmentally clean and clear. So that could be developed anytime once the purchase is made. But the bigger issue is what happens with the plant site itself, that northern parcel. And so, you figure there's at least a year's worth of, cleanup, asbestos removal, and salvage demo. And then the question is what do they do with the environmental cleanup of the ground underneath? And that will really depend on, what the requirements are from the DNR, but more importantly, what those future uses are going to be. And so we are very, very excited about where that's going. We've had good meetings throughout the past, 2+ years with General Motors. They've been absolutely top-notch and professional. And that is we've only had one meeting with commercial development company at this point, but that's certainly our first impression is this is what they do. They come in to a former industrial site that may or may not be environmentally contaminated. They clean it up and they sell it off, redevelop it, market it, whatever they need to do. So perfect fit.
It's great to hear that new plans are coming to that building.
Yep, absolutely.
Since it's a big part of the city.
Yeah.
Then another big topic this year has been the removal of the Monterey Dam and restoration of the area. Can you give us any updates on that project and its planned timeline?
Yeah, so talk about an emotional topic for the community over the past year. But, for the viewers that may not, be tracking the timelines, back in 2012 or so, before my arrival, the city received a note from the DNR that said, hey, you either need to fix the Monterey Dam or you need to remove it. And so in 2015, we actually pursued what would it cost us to fix it. That was the path that we pursued. And what we realized is the cost of fixing it was significantly more than we thought it was going to be. So we took it to the council, and the council said, hey, that's an awful lot of money to fix something that doesn't have a purpose, if you will. It's not producing electricity. It's not part of the flood control program. So you need to go back and take a look at removal and what that would look like. So we did, and we brought that back to the council in March of 2017 and said, we can remove it and do this with it, essentially restore the riverbanks, or we can repair it. Which would you prefer for us to do? And the council voted and approved removal of the dam in March of this year. And so what we've been working on over the past probably 7 or 8 months now has been, if you're going to take the dam out, that's relatively a simple engineering task. The real art to this, so that's science. But the art to this is when the dam comes out and the width of the river shrinks, essentially from Dawson Field down to where the Monterey Dam is now. In that stretch, it's going to see a significant reduction. Is what do you do with the exposed riverbanks? How do you make that look nice? Especially, in Monterey Park, current Monterey Park. And so we've had a work team that's been made up of community members that's been working over the past 7 or 8 months specifically to design what that river restoration is going to look like, both on the north side of the river and on the south side of the river. And what's exciting about this is that on December 11th at the council meeting, our Public Works Director will provide an update to the council on what that group has come up with as the final design. And so we're really excited about what that's going to look like and how it's going to be received by the community. So the things are certainly moving forward. I would tell you also, from a money standpoint, we've really got some grant opportunities out there that we can actually, decrease the amount of local tax dollars that are used fund the removal or to fund the river restoration. We just received some good news from the DNR here, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, that we got word that we're going to receive about $147,000 in DNR grant money to do some of that restoration work along the riverbanks. And so, that's $147,000 that we're not borrowing, that city taxpayers are paying for. So great news there. Here in January, we will apply for what's called a dam removal grant through the DNR, and so that will be submitted in January. We should hear back in the July time period, whether we get that or not, although I'm relatively confident that we would be a recipient there. But that's a maximum of $400,000, and so again, $400,000 that we're not having to borrow for, and local taxpayers aren't having to foot the bill for. Again, a good solution set. And so it's exciting. It's been a long process. It's obviously an emotional process. Like anything, you have those that are in favor and those that are not, and I appreciate that. And so we've tried to be as open and transparent in this process as we have been and could be, and we're going to move forward. The council will put this project out for bid come January, and so what we've learned in the past is that the January through probably February timeframe, getting a contractor to bid on a contract in that timeframe gets us a better cost, because they know they have work for the summer construction period, as opposed to if we wait until the summer to do it when they've already got a full schedule potentially. And so we always get better rates when we bid early. And so we're going to put the project out for bid in January, and then in February we'll bring this to the council for approval of that contract to really remove the dam and then restore the river. And we're going to treat it as one big contract package. And so for the community, we're looking at August, September time period as the time period for that the dam to come out. And what's interesting is that as you start to deconstruct the dam, you're only allowed to allow the river water levels to drop by 6 inches a day. And so it's a very, very controlled, methodical drawdown of the river. You remove the dam, the new width of the river is established and defined, and then if we do that in August and September, that gives us really September, October, and into November to get a cover crop established on the riverbanks before the winter time period. And that's important from a timing perspective, just to reduce the amount of erosion that will occur along the riverbanks. The other plus to that time period is that, again, back to the GM plant, the community is well aware that coming off of the GM plant into the Rock River, there was a stormwater pipe that carried a lot of contaminants and deposited those contaminants into the river. And so we have sediment in the bottom of the river that is contaminated. And so what we've been able to coordinate already with Commercial Development Company, they're going to take on that responsibility from GM. And so we're going to make sure that we're synchronized as we draw down the river, that they're on site, they're on the south side of the river, just north of the GM plant, so that as that sediment becomes exposed, they can begin to clear that sediment out and treat it, dispose of it, whatever they need to do with it to make sure that that riverbank is then environmentally safe. And so a long process, a lot of community discussion, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
When you were on the program last year, we talked about how you increased the city's legislative advocacy efforts since you've been city manager. It sounds like some of those efforts paid off in 2017. Can you talk a little bit about the additional state funding Janesville is receiving and why we are getting it? Yeah,
absolutely. So as I arrived into the city in late 2013, or early 2014, one of the folks that works in my office, Max Gagan, he's formerly been our assistant to the city manager, he brought to my attention that the city of Janesville was receiving an unfair distribution of state shared revenue. And at the time, I didn't really appreciate what state shared revenue was. I mean, I honestly didn't. And so so we sat down and kind of talked through the process. And the more we looked at it, I recognized, wow, this is really unfair. We're being essentially shortchanged compared to other peer communities in the state when it comes to shared revenue. And so, this is essentially state money that it gives and disperses to municipalities across the state to help them out based upon, population, their, the value of their assessed value of the entire community. And it's really designed, the formula was designed back in the 1970s, and it ran accordingly, and you plugged in the appropriate feeds, and it spit out the number that said Janesville gets this, Beloit gets this, Madison gets this, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the challenge on this one is that in 2001, the state froze the formula because every year it changed a little bit for everybody, and they wanted kind of a standard or a set number. Well, that was great, but in 2001, Janesville was a significantly different community than it is today in 2017. And so, what we discovered is that the way that the formula was supposed to be set up, if you have low property taxes in your community, you should see high shared revenue to offset that. If you have high property taxes in your community, you receive low shared revenue, and they eventually, across all the various communities, they balance out. Well, in Janesville's case, we have low property taxes per capita, and we get low shared revenue per capita. And so Janesville is truly an anomaly. There's no one else that's in that same predicament. Other cities that receive low shared revenue are Waukesha and Wauwatosa, but yet their property taxes are as high as, as any of our other peer communities. And so for them, it works out good. For Beloit is low property tax, high shared revenue. So it balances out. Janesville's low and low. And so we are the anomaly. And so in 2015, 16, and even into this year, we've worked very hard to advocate to our state legislators that the formula is unfair. And everyone recognizes, yep, it's unfair. But no one to this date has been willing to, or to this year, has been willing to make that change and to fix the formula, or just turn the formula back on and allow the numbers, the current numbers, to drive shared revenue. And, frankly, no one's willing to take on that problem set. But fortunately, this year, our representative from Janesville, Amy Loudenbeck, she kind of covers the northeast corner of the state, or of the city. She was able to insert into the budget essentially an additional appropriation of shared revenue to the tune of $583,000 for the city that would help to offset that imbalance. Now, it's not anywhere close to what the right numbers would be, but anything at this point helps. And so, when we lobbied our legislators, we said there were 4 things that were really out of balance in the city of Janesville. Our police staffing per capita, our firefighter and EMS staffing per capita, our transit fares for our riders on our Janesville transit system. The fares were the second highest of all of our peer municipalities, and frankly, our road program, even at 12 miles, was lower or less than our peer communities. And so we decided from a budgetary standpoint, when that $583,000 got approved in the state's budget, and we're very, very thankful that the state legislators, both in the Assembly and in the Senate and the governor, kept that additional $583,000 into the budget. And so, when I proposed my city budget for 2018 to the council a couple months ago, we wanted to make sure that that $583,000 was being put towards those 4 shortfalls. And so I'm pleased to say that the council appreciated that. They seem to have accepted that. As of the filming of this show, we haven't yet got an approved budget finalized, but we'll see whether the council changes anything. My gut feel is they won't change anything this coming Monday. But the bottom line is that with that $583,000 additional dollars, $583,000 additional dollars, we're getting 2 more police officers plus some overtime for the police department, 3 more firefighters. We're reducing our JTS average fare by 25 cents a ride, and we're doubling our crack seal program for our road program. And so, we put our money where our mouth was, and this makes a difference. It doesn't right the wrong of shared revenue by any means, but it certainly helps with the city moving forward.
What are some other significant legislative issues that the City of Janesville will raise with federal and state officials in 2018?
Yeah, so it's the timing of the show is perfect because we're working right now on establishing that legislative agenda. And so at the federal level, there's really a couple things that are huge. Our number one priority with the federal government is we need the federal government to continue to fully fund the road and transportation program and those monies that they provide to the state to fix roads, because that's targeted on I-3990, making sure that I-3990 is on track, it's on time. In fact, give us more money so we can do it faster than we are right now. But, as the community well knows, I-3990 right through the heart of Janesville is being, dug up and transitioned right now. And we just want to make sure that that program stays on track, fully funded, and that we don't allow it to slip in time, i.e. instead of finishing in 2023, it's 2027 before it finishes. So we're excited about that. That's our number one federal priority. Number two is all about public transportation. We run our Janesville transit system, in large part with federal assistance, whether that be funding for the program or, the buses, the purchase of the buses and the equipment itself. We have 17 buses in the city of Janesville. Currently, 16 of those have reached a point where they are beyond their expected life cycle as defined by the federal government. Typically, a bus should be out of service when it gets 500,000 miles on it or when it hits 12 years in service. Think about that. That's a lot of miles, that's a lot of years, and 16 of our 17 buses have passed either one of those thresholds. So we need the federal government to continue to provide not only the operational funding to keep that program and that system moving, because again, those people in our community that aren't as well off, rely on that, not to mention the school program, relies on that bus system to get kids to and from school, and those that don't have cars or don't have another way to get to work rely on that bus to get to and from work. And so it's a critical component of our community, and we very, very much need the federal government to continue to fund it. The third thing is again, with the federal government is we receive federal monies to support our housing program and our community development block grant program. And these are two programs that, really target, the poorest of the poor in Janesville, those that are challenged to make ends meet on a monthly basis. We get that federal government, and then the Community Development Authority decides how to disperse it, to make sure that it's making the biggest impact in our community. And I would tell you that, we have a rent assistance program that's funded from federal funds, and we have over 700 people currently on that program from the surrounding areas. When you get down into people who live just in Janesville or work in Janesville, there's 570 people that are just on the wait list. They haven't been served yet, they're on the wait list. And so we need that money to continue to flow so we can make an impact in the lives of 570 plus people here in the community. And so that's our third priority. And then really the fourth priority is a safety issue, and it comes to railroad safety. As you know, we have 2 lines that come into the city from the north and 4 lines that go out from the south, whether it's Wisconsin Southern or Union Pacific, doesn't make a difference, but they're moving stuff through our city on a daily basis. You probably hear the engine horns sounding at odd hours of the day. So there's traffic moving on rail cars each and every day, multiple times a day, and sometimes that's hazardous cargo. That's oil or that's gas or some other chemical. And one of the things that we're trying to get the federal government to recognize is we, the city, need to know so that we can share that information with our fire department, with our police department, and first responders, so that we have some visibility on when these hazardous materials are transiting our city, especially on the rails. And oh, by the way, the community may not recognize, but we do have a single point of failure between 5 Points and essentially the river, where it's just one line. The 2 lines in the north connect at the river. They cross over an essentially parallel centerway to 5 Points, and then it branches out to the 4. But that's one track that serves all that traffic that's moving north-south. And so our concern is if we're going to have an accident or a problem, it's probably going to be on that single point of failure stretch, which, oh, by the way, happens to be right in the middle of our downtown and where people are at all the time, whether day, night, weekends, etc. So we want to make sure we get some traction there. On the state level, we've talked about it, already, and that is the redistribution of shared revenue and getting that, either the calculation fixed or the calculation turned back on. The other one is this idea of local control, and that is right now the state has restrictions in place on municipalities which tell us we cannot increase our levy limit beyond what the value of net new construction is. Net new construction is essentially a percentage that's associated with the amount of new building that occurs in a community. And historically, net new construction looks like this, and it's outpaced every year by inflation. So really, we're not keeping up with inflation. In fact, all of our hard work to bring new business to Janesville gets consumed by inflation, and so our levy over the past several years has actually gone down as far as our buying power with that money. And so, we've asked the state to consider lifting the maximum levy limit from net new construction plus inflation so that we aren't penalized because of inflation. So that's one. Another one that we've asked them to reconsider is a municipality cannot impose a local sales tax option. Well, we ran the numbers. Right now in Janesville, sales tax is 5.5%. 5% goes to the state, 0.5% goes to the county. In Janesville, Janesville can't put a sales tax on. If we raised it to 6%, for example, that 0.5% would bring in about $7 million into the city annually. Well, that would, essentially right all the wrongs associated with shared revenue, but it would also take into account all of the traffic that moves through Janesville that, essentially ties up resources on our interstates when there are accidents, folks that drive on our roads that, are from Illinois or points south or Minnesota and points north or west that transit our community. And so we think that a local sales tax would be an option, and right now we're, prevented from doing that. Third thing continues to be state funding for transportation and roads. I mentioned, the Austin Road project and the East Milwaukee projects. Those were funded with state transportation aids, and that's a discussion topic across the entire state. But we need to make sure we keep the pressure on the state to continue to fund and put money towards our transportation network because, if you drive around Wisconsin, you'll recognize that the road networks are in dire need of some work. And so I want to make sure that they do that. We've talked, it's been a community discussion for about 2 years now, and that is this dark store assessment appeals process. But, that's where a company like a Walmart, for example, says that, the assessment of that property should not take into effect how it's being used or what's inside it. It should be treated as if it was an abandoned building. Well, I'm sorry, an abandoned building is much different than a vibrant business and a functioning business. And so I'm not sure the argument, I don't understand it, but frankly, that's the law as it's written right now. And so it affects all taxpayers in the city of Janesville. And then the last one is regulation of cell phone towers. Right now in the state, if a cell phone company wants to come in and put a cell phone tower on the terrace in front of your house, they can. And we have no say in that as a municipality. And so we need to get that fixed, that the municipality and the resident are brought into the conversation, because I guarantee you we can find a better solution than putting a cell phone tower in front of someone's home. So that's our federal and state legislative agenda. Obviously, those can adjust over the course of the year based upon legislative action, but that's the game plan moving forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of important issues in there that we're trying to get fixed.
Yep.
So we're just about out of time. Do you have any closing thoughts for our viewers at home?
Yeah, I would share with you, and we've talked about this in the office, but it's a great time to live in Janesville, to work in Janesville, but certainly to be a member of this community. And when I say that, I really caveat on just a list of things that I think are are really important. Number one, jobs are available in the community. You know, everywhere you go, you're going to see signs that say, help wanted, apply within, hiring all shifts, you name it. Now, you know, those might not be, you know, the best paying jobs, but they are jobs, and so we have jobs in the city. Next, in the housing market, if you will, a lot of folks are realizing with all of these people coming to the community because jobs are being created, you know, frankly, there aren't enough houses for everybody to live in. So we now have a seller's market. And so if you own a house and you want to sell it, you know, chances are you're going to put it on the market, you know, and it's going to be off the market if it's a nice quality home within a matter of days. And in some cases, I've even heard that people are offering to pay more than the asking price in order to seal the deal. And so, I mean, it's a seller's market. That's a good problem to have. It's also a difficult problem to have because obviously we have more people who want to live here than we have housing stock available for them. And kind of tied to that, not in the home ownership piece, but in the rental market for apartments or homes, it's a 1% vacancy rate right now. And so, you know, when an apartment comes up on the market, it's probably been leased out already, you know, for you know, a month, two, sometimes wait list is up to 6 months, I've heard. So very, very difficult to get into a home or an apartment here in Janesville. Another great news story, and this is a testament to the Janesville Police Department. You know, they keep track of crime, you know, every year. And in 2017, we were at a 25-year low for crime in the city of Janesville. You know, and when you look at all the things that are happening, especially if you ever pay attention to the, you know, to the news down in Chicago, you know, I mean, strange and sad things happening in Metro Chicago. Janesville's actually, you know, crime is decreasing, and that's just unheard of. And so a great news story for Janesville. As always, we've got award-winning schools with both the School District of Janesville and the School District of Milton that serve, you know, our communities. As I mentioned, we have new businesses coming to town, and then those businesses that are currently in town are expanding and growing, creating those jobs. We've talked about Arise Town Square and the redevelopment, revitalization in our downtown. We've talked about GM plant, you know, finally getting some answers to that and some, you know, charting that course forward. One of the new companies I mentioned in town, in the downtown, Shine, you know, they've broken ground on their building number 1, and so that brings a whole new market segment with medical radioisotopes into our community and into this region, and so that's exciting. I mentioned the road program, I've mentioned shared revenue, and I've mentioned I-3990 and the reconstruction, and so I just think that you know, the community, you know, when you look at it as I do, yeah, there are lots of opportunities to nitpick certain things going on across the community. I think that's human nature sometimes. But when you look holistically across the community, it's a great time to live, work, and play in Janesville.
Thank you, Mark, for being here today and giving our viewers insight into the big picture at the City of Janesville over the last year and into the future. And thank you, viewers at home, for tuning in. Next month, we'll be talking all about the City of Janesville's 2018 annual budget, including changes in the budget, the budgeting process, and how you can get more informed on where your tax dollars go. In addition to tuning into this program on a monthly basis, stay connected to the City of Janesville by following us on Facebook or Twitter. You can also sign up to receive emails with our press releases and other important information. And you can subscribe to get emergency alerts from the Janesville Police Department on Nixle. For Park Place Views and the City of Janesville, I'm Jamie Balsiger. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next month.